say bye 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 to mommy, bye 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 to daddy. You wanna be with your wifey, bye 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 to daddy. Mom say you wanna be with your husband, bye 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 to daddy. Mommy,
I
you're
like your
right.
topic this morning.
Oh, show me
Yeah,
how
very
you want to come
interesting.
on,
Yeah.
man. Yeah,
I
you're
just I saw a
right.
number of comments on
Oh,
Twitter and
show
I
me the
felt,
boy,
this is not
come
the way
on
to go. So I
today.
started to
Bye bye
sample the
bye.
opinion of people.
Bye
And
bye.
looks like half of the people are, I think it's just in the moment. People are still
Yeah,
angry
in the
and
moment.
yeah,
Yeah, I
emotional.
think so too.
So hopefully that doesn't change anything.
What are your solutions and take therapy?
Feed your
Someone that knows
mind and the
similar.
rest
All
will
right, well,
follow.
right, people go.
To start with what does health look like for me? Physically, mentally, emotionally, and work really hard on being good at you.
Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy life. Soul Food on Smooth 98.1.
Okay, so I'm the only one sitting. This is weird. Let's go. You don't even know how weird it feels right now because I am the only one sitting in the studio. I've got my guest in the studio, and both of them are standing because you know how it has been said that sitting is the new smoking. But I have to sit to do my job, right? I have the excuse. I have given myself the excuse. You're listening to Smooth 98.1 FM. The show is called Soul Food right now, and it runs from 8 to 8:30. You can join us on YouTube where you see my guests standing gracefully and elegantly. On YouTube, it is Smooth 91 FM Lagos. Again, Smooth 91 FM Lagos. We're streaming live, and that allows you to drop your comment and say whatever it is you like to say. You can also be a part of our WhatsApp WhatsApp family, by the way. So send in your WhatsApp messages to 0809 444 0981 because we are talking about obesity. I mean, it's only important that we take decisions that are lifestyle conscious. That said, I am joined this morning by two people who are no strangers to the show. If you're a regular, I'll start with the lady. Her name is Sherese Ijewere, and she is a clinical nutrition consultant and also a gut health practitioner. Good morning.
Good morning. Good
Thank you
morning.
for coming here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, doctor, the last time he was here, he came with so much thoughtfulness for us. He came with food for thought. I mean, I served breakfast, but he brought food, only that it was food for thought. And he's an internal medicine consultant. His name is Dr. Patrick Ijewere. Good morning.
Good morning. Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in too. I mean, today is not Tuesday, but you came in too. Thank you so much. That said, this topic, I know that you're very concerned about lifestyle choices and the approaches that you have about maintaining healthy life. They are quite interesting. I felt okay, we have had a lot of conversations around obesity, especially seeing that 4th of March was a World Obesity Day. Now, how about we extend it to children, those ones who, to an extent, they might not even have control over the choices of food that they currently have. So that said, I'd like to start with the basics. Now, in adults, we know that obesity is when, according to the World Health Organization, when your BMI, which is your body mass index, is over 30. But for children, how do you measure obesity in children?
Well, starting with the basics, you've asked specifically about measuring BMI in children.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes to measuring your body mass index, we all know that it's kgs divided by meters square. And of course, if your child is going to your pediatrician, they are also measuring their growth on the growth chart. So
Okay.
they know when they're going above the normal range. And then, of course, you as parents know when your child is getting overweight.
Hmm.
Yes. So
Okay.
sometimes you really don't need the index to show you. You know when you're overweight, and you also know when your child is overweight. Even looking in a classroom, if your child is the biggest one there, there is something going on.
Okay. In other words, you don't need any writing on the wall, any cryptic message for you to know that, yes, something is wrong here. Okay, so in that case, we can cross over to the parents. I mean, they are the ones probably responsible, but I wouldn't want to assume, right? How do children become obese? It looks like a no-brainer. I mean, it's very evident, but I'd like us to break it into bits. How do children become obese?
The basics.
All right, the basics. The foundation really is we live in a perfect system. When things go awry, systems respond.
Mm.
Obesity is simply a response by the system that we've gotten off track. Simple examples. You look at a mother who's pregnant. At some point, the body knows when to trigger delivery, the contractions. I love the example of at night, you go to bed, you wake up in the morning, and you're alive. Your heart is still beating. While you were asleep, who was beating your heart? There's already a program in place, a system in place of perfection that makes things easy for us. So when disease shows up, which obesity is also a disease now, you know you've gone off track.
Mm.
So from a parental perspective, parents have to stop and say, okay, what am I doing that has caused this child of mine to go off track, to become obese? Parents are in charge of the children's nutrition. The parents' knowledge of how they grew up plays a huge role. The parents' knowledge of what influences them, whether it's from the advertisements or it's from what their friends are feeding their children or what they learned in school, is what they are passing to the children. So parental knowledge is huge. Having said that, the other basic is the body in its perfection wants to be well. And once a parent understands what they need to do to correct that child's obesity and they put it in place, it's amazing. The child just comes back into the design of perfection. The ease, not the disease, but the ease.
Okay.
And just to jump on what doctor is also saying is the mother's body is prepared before, because so I'm going all the way back to infancy. So the mother's body is prepared before the pregnancy actually occurs. So that means what the mom is eating, what she's not eating, what she's feeding herself affects her whole being, and that embryo that's about to turn into this baby growing in the uterus. So by the time the baby is delivered, what knowledge does that mom have? Did she plan it to breastfeed her child, or is she on the track of, you know what, let me just bottle feed because I can't be bothered? Somebody else will be feeding the baby. So it starts from there,
Mm.
and then of course progresses to, are you planning to, and the thought process behind this is so important, are you planning to make your foods for your baby, or are you planning to buy the food off the shelf? Is it fresh or is it processed? And then of course you go to the next stage, cereals. Is this our local cereals, or are you buying the foreign made cereals and giving your children? How long has those things been on the shelf?
Mm. Wow. Well, thank you, because as you have said, I can infer that, of course, obesity starts from inside the belly, because there are babies who come out big.
Yes, yes, yes. And many times it's linked to gestational diabetes where the mom is eating so much and
The hormones that are at play during that pregnancy
Mm.
period, from the mother's insulin levels to her growth hormone levels to her cortisol levels, all influence that fetus, that child in womb, and the genes the child has received already that
Mm.
are now influenced to be expressed both in utero and post utero once baby is born.
I know somebody who the baby came out with a birth weight of 4.2.
wow.
And what happened was that during the pregnancy, the mother took lots of yogurt. Not just any kind of yogurt, every yogurt she could find. There was a particular brand she liked, and it was sweetened, and she enjoyed it.
Wow.
So anytime she gets it, 1 liter has to go down. I mean, when you take it and you never stop, that
Mm.
was, and when the baby popped out, 4.2.
Wow.
But the thing is, eventually the baby was normalized, and that brings me to something. Sometimes you see some babies that are quite chubby and you're worried on behalf of the mother or on behalf of the family. And they tell you, oh no, there is no worries at all. It is baby fat. What is
Yeah.
what is baby fat? And they'll tell you, oh, they will lose it naturally. Is there, I don't know, is there such a thing as baby fat, or it is fat that comes as a result of what they eat?
No, there's definitely something such as baby fat.
Okay.
But then, of course, if your baby is not really moving around, crawling, standing, being active, and all you do is maybe put the baby's bottle in their mouth and they sleep and they wake, and any cry, you give them food. Any cry, you give them food. All of that starts adding up as well.
Mm.
Taking that scenario a step further, that same child now goes to boarding school, and
Uh,
within 1 year, there's trouble in the school because the child has. In school, the child is active. They're walking
mm,
around. They're engaged in sporting activities. They're standing doing A and B. If they're in some of the tougher boarding schools, they're doing some gardening. They're doing some cleaning, which very likely while they were at home, they were not doing any of that.
mm,
So the child's physical activity can also turn on the genes for obesity or shut them down. The
mm.
child's idleness, sedentary behavior can turn on the genes for diabetes or shut them down, can turn off the enzymes that burn fat or shut off those enzymes.
Mhm. And that baby fat, we're now saying at 12 years old, are you still saying that's baby fat or is that inactivity?
I'll take this question from Cruz and it will lead us into another part. So he says, is a fat child not an evidence of good living? I think we should talk about that, which is the mentality of quite a number of people. Uh, So I think that's one of the reasons, in my opinion, though I'll take your thought. That's one of the reasons we have childhood obesity on the increase because we have people who believe chubby kids are a reflection of their socioeconomic status and their money. I mean, if you're rich, how else will your child show it if they are not on the plus size?
This thinking pervades into adulthood. Share with a quick story. I had a cousin who lived with me in the US, and when he came back to Nigeria, and this guy was slim like an athlete upon graduation. Came back home. A few years later, I came home to visit, and he had put on so much weight. So, dude, what's going on? Like, okay, dad, Patrick, you don't understand. You see, around here, if you are slim and neat, people not gonna respect you. You have to be, have orobo and load it that on the road, the police and last man go respect you.
Mhm.
Cut the long
And,
story short, eventually he passed away from cancer
Ow.
yeah,
after dealing with high blood pressure and borderline diabetes,
yeah. And
age 36.
36.
Yeah.
mhm. It was sad.
Obesity switches on all those genes for disease, period.
And to just drive the examples a bit closer to home as well, I had one of our clients tell us of a patient who a colleague or so who was on public transport with him, and she had a pizza box. And this is in the middle of the week, so he's like, okay, so I see you're going home with pizza. She said, yes, that's all my children will eat. That's what they want in the middle of the week. That's what my children want. So, parents, are we setting boundaries? Are we having a treat day? Because we're not saying you can't give your children different foods to eat, but you need to set boundaries. Have a special day. I remember in our family, we had French fry Friday. That was to the extent of what we did. Maybe every other Friday or so. The children looked forward to it. Another thing as well is we have so many fast food places popping up that right now the average child in Nigeria, who is, let me say, privileged, does not know what food is, including the parents. So we have parents who will come in, we will go through a nutrition consultation. They will tell me what they're eating, and then I will say, okay, let's substitute it with these things. And they're like, but if you take off all these foods that I think is food, what really will I be eating? So they've forgotten about the yam, the sweet potato, the amala, and so forth. They've
Mm.
forgotten about our native foods, and now they think the fast foods are the food to eat.
that's just sad because I'm looking at the data, and according to, if you start with the adult, according to the World Health Organization, in 2016, we had more than 1.9 billion adults 18 years older who were overweight. And of these numbers, you had about 650 million people who were obese. Remember, that was 2016. Then it said that most of the world's population live in countries where being overweight and being obese actually kill people more than being underweight. And I find that ironic.
Because, yeah.
Obesity is the new malnutrition. I repeat, obesity is the new malnutrition. We think of malnutrition as thin child, big belly, kwashiorkor, marasmus, and things like that. Yes, that is undernutrition malnutrition or undernourishment malnutrition. On the other end of the spectrum, now we have folks who are obese, who are also malnourished. They're overnourished, but they're
Malnourished.
malnourished.
Mhm.
They're consuming excess calories without the micronutrients the body needs to use the calories. They're consuming excess calories without the activity that burns the calories. I mean, our grandparents may have eaten pounded yam 3 times a day, but they were in the farm. They were walking 20 kilometers every day to the farm or to go visit somebody in the neighboring village.
Mm.
So we have an emerging epidemic of obesity, which is truly a form of malnutrition.
So overnourishment. And that also brings me to the schools. So we have primary school, we have secondary school, and right now you see 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, maybe I have a client who's 130 kgs and she is just 12. And she
Wait,
says weight wise, 120 kgs.
12 years.
12 years old, 120 kgs, and she says she's not the biggest person in her class. Others are bigger. So now it's looking like the people who we think are normal in our eyes, for the overweight person, they are looking like, are you not being fed? This is the new normal.
Houston, we have a problem. A big one. Because when I looked at the data from WHO that says that as of 2020, we had about 39 million children under 5. Under 5. That's just mind blowing. That were obese. And then I checked something out when it concerns Nigerian demography. According to one article that was published by a lecturer that has a specialty in nutrition epidemiology, it says that where is it now? It says that in Nigeria, that about that where is it? Okay, so he said overall prevalence of overweight obesity found out among adolescents were 10.2%, and it was not even certain because it was just a part of Nigeria, which is southwest. Now, what I find troubling is that the prevalence of systolic and diastolic pre-hypertension
Yes.
was about 10.9% and 11.5% respectively.
It is real. And this is what we're seeing: children with high blood pressure, teenagers with diabetes, adolescents with diabetes. And prior to this, you would see those diseases maybe in 40, 50-year olds. Now we're seeing it in teenagers and children.
We have a client age 34 who has severe heart disease to the point where the two cardiologists, well known here in Lagos, are unable to do anything with him. They can't even put a stent, they can't even do a bypass. They've told him, you have to go abroad. We don't have the capacity to do this level of blockage. It's only 34, which means that the blockage has been building up for the last 15 to 20 years since he was a teenager. And when we look at his food back in secondary school and university, my goodness, I won't name any brands, but some brands are flatly culpable.
You know what? Is there anything we can do?
Yes, we can.
Because before you even answer that, I'm looking at a typical parent in Lagos. I wouldn't even say typical because we have different scenarios that are applicable to each person. But a family, have you seen children in cars in the morning before on their way to work with their parent around 6 a.m., 5 a.m.? And you look at them at the back of the car, you have them with some brands of snacks and soda because that's the easy thing. And
True.
when they're coming back, the mom or the dad does not have time to quickly cook and they go to the fast food joint.
Yeah.
you would easily say it's because of the work schedule and a lot of that. So in a case like that, what should a parent like that do?
I mean, doctor always says there's always a price to pay. You either pay it up front with healthy living and behavior, or you pay it later when disease shows up. Convenience in foods equal convenience in disease. There's a trade-off. And so as parents, yes, we're working hard. Yes, we want the best for our children, but we have to make that extra effort. The effort has to be there because emphatically, I will just stress on when your teenager gets older or maybe adolescence, they are going to blame you. Like, how did you get to this point? You the parents are feeding them these items. Is that what your parents fed you? Is this really okay? Are you ready for those hospital bills? Because they will come.
They will come for sure. Many of our schools are equally culpable because many of them are encouraging these convenient fast foods. They serve it, they adore it, and they justify it. We've been to schools where we look at the meal plan and we say, listen, you're feeding this child bread in the morning, which is wheat. For lunch, you're feeding them semo, which is wheat. For evening, it's noodles or spaghetti, which is wheat. That's malnutrition. You say, well, we are cost conscious, and when we look at our budget, this is what we can afford to feed the children. No problem. Feed them cheap now. The parents are going to pay it later with the health bills. So schools are equally as culpable as parents are. What to do about it? We'll start educating everyone, from parents to the schools, those who run the schools. If you're buying cheap food, you're endangering the children's health. You may not see it right away, but schools need to become more understanding of proper nutrition. Proper nutrition. Otherwise, we'll see the same data. You've already mentioned some data. We've seen it in the US.
Oh, that is totally outrageous. The US has the highest number when
Mhm.
it concerns obesity and, of course, diabetes.
Diabetes, we, Nigeria, are the largest sub-Saharan
Yes,
African
with the
country
number.
that the numbers are just rising and rising. Yes. So we have gone to schools, we've been called in, and we look at the meal plan. We put together a more nutrient dense meal plan that includes our local grains, our local foods that can be cooked and given to the children.
Just a simple example.
And then we also educate the parents. So at PTA, we will have that talk, and parents will certainly understand and be on board because everyone needs to be on board, including the children. So they also have a say so and give suggestions and so forth so that it builds, better community as well.
Just two quick scenarios. One, at one of the schools where I did an analysis, there was barely any fruit or salad on the menu. Those are where your micronutrients are abundant, which the body needs to process the larger carbohydrate and fat macronutrients. We just went through a Balomo season. Let's come to the end. Talk to one of the schools here in Lagos. Did they provide a Balomo to any children for the last 3 months of the season? No. So it's a reason God gives us foods in season, fruits in season. It's a reason. And we did a challenge, and the clients who consumed it noticed, number one, they didn't eat that much. The appetite actually diminished, and they were full of energy, sleeping much better, mental clarity.
And then a big one that a lot of children deal with is constipation. And so, yeah, fruits like agbalamo helps to just clear the gut lining.
Okay, that's quite interesting. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll give the final thought. Well, I'm sorry if you have missed out on the Agbalumo season. Sorry. It will come back. And if there is any point I can extract from what you have said, is that healthy eating does not necessarily need to be expensive. Just take advantage of the fruit and food in season, and you'll be just fine. But before that, it means you have to intentionally think about it. And when we come back, we'll give you more practical steps on how to prevent your child from being obese and maybe correct their taste buds. Because I imagine a child who is already accustomed to pizza and all the waffles and all the sweet tongue thing, you need to look for a way to pacify them. You're listening to Soul Food right here on Smooth 98.1.
Music.
Love life.
Hey, we just
Well, that requires some total overhaul.
A whole family meeting. Let's have a meeting. Let's look at different things and switch out.
It's Ramadan.
And let the
Come
children
on
run the
board.
meeting.
Let's go on a tour to the top
I remember
restaurants
one
where you
video
can
I
enjoy
saw
the best
during
of
the
the season.
COVID-19
First stop
lockdown.
is
I
Charity
don't know if you saw,
Cafe.
it was a
Here,
child.
the currency
He was
sharing.
cute,
So
but he
keep
was not
giving.
so cute
Next
because
stop is
she was
Kindness
crying. She was
Bistro.
almost having a
Be
mental
the
breakdown.
kindest you can
And she
be.
said,
Last
I am
but not the
tired of
least,
my life.
make a
Why are you
stop
tired
by
of your
at
life?
Forgiveness
I can go
drive-thru
out, I
and
can go
let
to
go of every
McDonald's.
I saw that.
And
Yeah,
that's
it was a white
all an
girl.
eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw
Bring it home
that.
with the
Like, oh
goodness
my
of
God,
great
what did I
tasting
do to
meals
this
with
girl?
more. This Ramadan,
It's
don't
sad.
just eat for good.
She's
Share
tired
the good
because
and
she's
be the
unable to go
good.
to
Nor
McDonald's.
eat for good.
That's
Moving,
crazy.
grooving,
All right, we'll come back.
music on Smooth 98.1.
Actually, the groove we're telling you to get on now is the groove of health and wellness, especially as concerning your generation to come. I imagine that you would want them to carry your name, right? And for that to happen, it means they need to be in good health and, of course, be totally okay. That's why we are talking about childhood obesity right here on Smooth 98.1. I have the company of two amazing people who have been doing justice to it, gradually breaking it into bits and pieces, and, of course, not in a judgmental tone, telling you, well, you need to think about these things and the consequences of your action. My guests are Sherese Ijewere and Dr. Patrick Ijewere. You can join us on YouTube, by the way. It is youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. I mentioned it at the start of the show that they were standing. They are still standing. All right, before the break, I said we need to talk about practical steps to correct these things. Number one definitely has to do with the mentality change that chubby babies, fat babies, obese babies are not necessarily evidence of good living, right?
Correct, correct.
So, what are the other steps that we need to take to correct these issues?
Educating our family, educating schools, educating the adults and the children. And in doing this, just some practical ways, reading labels. When you go to the supermarket, you go to the market, wherever you're going to buy food, if it comes in a package, take the time to read the labels. The first ingredient is usually the most ingredient. You're looking at the carbs, the fiber, the sugars in these labels.
And if the numbers there don't make sense to you, connect with a nutritionist, connect with an expert to help break it down. The manufacturers and the marketers are deliberate in making those numbers a bit meaningless, just to meet the government requirements. So education is really the foundation.
Yes.
Next, clinically have that child checked, if possible, once a year. Preferably with a nutritionist. Yes, do the regular pediatrician check, but also get in a nutritionist. And at that check, have the entire family present, if possible, daddy, mommy, and the other siblings.
And once the family is on board, you can call a family meeting this weekend. Just start action. And on at that family meeting, just say that we want all of you to be around for a long time. We want you to not have any ailments, to have energy, to have good memory so you can recall things. And so at this meeting, the children can come up with a timetable that is healthy. Children are very smart. Once they know what is good for them, they want to have beautiful skin, they want to have nice, black, strong hair, and they want to be full of energy, then certainly, yes, they will tell you the foods that give you these micro and macronutrients.
What about the ones that, okay, you want to say something?
Just parents, the schools you send the children to, if there's a meal plan or there's a meal schedule or food schedule, what they call it, get a copy of it and look at it and ask them, ask questions as like a detective. Does this make sense? Put the school on
On the hot seat. Yeah, because I mean these are your children. Our children are the future. And we all know now that many generations our generation now sometimes are leaving us before the time.
Yes, we're dying younger and younger. We're getting sicker, younger and younger.
Yeah.
Okay. and we don't want that because we want to preserve it. Remember, I said earlier that there was a certain number. You had 10.9% and 11.9% of prevalence of systolic and diastolic prehypertension in adolescents. Now, overall, it says that 1/3 of the adolescent had elevated systolic or diastolic blood pressure. I can't even imagine elevated blood pressure in adolescents.
Yes, yes. And one of the major culprits as well is many children, adolescents are not drinking water. Parents have told me that they found soda bottles underneath their bed, or biscuits and different things underneath their bed. Yeah, and the biggest one that was about last week or 2 weeks ago, uh, energy drinks.
No
So
way.
this means parents, because parents, you're the ones buying these things. Your children see you. It's not don't do what I say, but do what I do. So you're setting the example for your children. If you're drinking energy drinks, take a look underneath your children's bed or in the back of the closet, because that's where this particular parent told me she found all her energy drinks. She was wondering, did I drink these things? And then yeah, she saw it in her children's room.
They're
Big
called
problem.
energy drinks.
Energy. So your child is looking for that energy. I mean, it makes sense.
Those drinks create addiction.
And then your child can't sleep.
Those drinks are setting your child up for heart disease and diabetes.
Okay.
It's sad.
Now that you say it, with the tone you're saying it, it's actually scary.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, very true.
Okay. I'm not sure if there's any other thing to add. Cruz says, doctors, you've done well with your words. I've heard even what you didn't say. Well, please, beyond hearing, make sure that you implement. It's just really, really. I think there is something I probably should confirm. Having a food timetable at home, does it help?
It helps. It helps. It helps the mom. It helps the dad. You already know what's on the schedule. We have 4 children. I remember our children will say, "Oh, we don't want this and that." Who's the parent? What's on your timetable? Today's Tuesday. What's on the timetable? That's what we're having.
Who's the parent?
Right.
Who's the boss here? You call the shot. And that's very true, actually. In fact, I feel we might not be able to fully address this issue until we address parenting.
Yes.
Because there are some parents who are being parented by their baby parents.
Yeah.
That's the children. Because when your child starts to dictate, oh, I'm not eating this, and then throws a tantrum. And it's a good thing, spanking your child is not a crime here in Nigeria.
Right.
But even these days, it's regarded as child abuse.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, it is. But you understand the point. You need to be able to parent your children, really, for your own sake and peace of mind. I'm sure you don't want to be spending money on hypertension as early as 20. So please take care and tell them that this is ultimately for their good and yours. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Shayon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing the food for thought as always. We will feast on it and produce good food. Thank you so much to everyone who's been a part of the show. We will continue this some other time. But if you have just tuned in because you missed out on it, you can go back to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/smooth92 on FM Lagos. That's where you find the streamed video and you can share with your family and friends. Save the world and let us just curtail this epidemic that is increasing day by day. On the other side will be time for the children actually to have a great time on Curious Minds. It's for the children between 6 to 15 and I encourage you to allow them come around. That's why I'm even playing you a children's song from the movie Frozen.
Thanks so
Thank
much, Shayon.
you.
Fun as
Thank you.
always.
Thank you. This
And
is
you're
something
such
we
a
need to
great
talk
host.
about. Oh, thank you. All right, let me just end the video and see you.
Okay.
Hello.